Hello, today we're looking at taking apart an Xbox One controller, a controller I used to use, and it has since suffered from joystick problems. In today's video, I don't go over the specifics of the controller or how to properly assemble or disassemble. This is just a pure educational guide for amateurs, including myself. So if you're looking for a proper guide, I would highly suggest looking up somewhere else, as this is just a pure dive into what can cause a controller to break, or how a controller works, or assembly and disassembly. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, this is the tricky part. Then these two detached. I disassembled this once, but I think I might have broke something last time I tried it. Okay, this might be in part one. Okay, part two. So what I did, hopefully the audio is coming through. I used a guitar pick to take the sides off the handles of the controller on both sides, and before you do that, you want to take the battery cover off so you can access the screw. There's also more screws. There's a total of 5 screws for the back of the controller. One right here, just under where the battery sticker would be, or warranty sticker, or whatever the case might be. The reason I took this controller apart was because I had a major stick shift problem, and you'll see why in about a few minutes. So there's a screw right here, and there's a screw in here, and there's another one here, another one there. And of course, as you can probably tell, if my iPad camera can zoom in on this, it's on Phillips, and I'm too lazy to do Phillips from upstairs, so I'm just going to use one of these flat screwdriver things. So be careful not to lose a screw. This controller is kind of on its last legs anyways. So there's really these screws right here, you gotta be careful about. They're really tricky to get right into, and you can kind of damage the board if you're not careful. But if your controller is this out of shape, Not that this controller is out of shape or anything, but if it's just broken, I mean, you don't want to damage it any more than it already is. Alright, now this one, I know how to do this in segments with the uploads seem better. Alright, and now you want to lift so get a better angle of this. You want to lift the faceplate off, and this is what you'll see. If you have your A, X, Y, B buttons, your start and select and all that, power button, this D-pad might be a little wonky because I probably didn't put it in correctly when I put it back together. You have the joysticks. This one's been giving me issues. And I think this one's now giving me issues. And these are the rumble motors, which is like the heaviest part of the controller. Like, they are the bulk of the weight of these controllers. So I'm gonna do a part 3. Okay, part 3. So now we got the faceplate off. We're just gonna take the back off of this, and be careful with the battery contacts. They could do damage if you are not careful with it. Right here. So this is what the back of the controller looks like. And now you see or start to understand why these controllers are expensive, because they're pretty complex. So what we have here is, so this is interesting. So this is how the triggers work. They have so something I learned in pre-engineering and help desk and all that. You have these little things that are possibly closing the circuit that's already activated. So like there's kind of a circuit that's usually incomplete, and to close it, you kind of just do contacts. I mean, that's kind of like, that's like a really oversimplification of how that works. Like, really oversimplification. Here's the rumble motors. You can kind of just take them out. See? So the triggers, they're closing circuit. And then there's the other rumble motor. It's like, this one's like a half circle. This one's just a little tiny version, half circle. Kind of looks like a skull. Yeah. So, let's see here. I need to look at something real quick. Okay, so this is what the inside of the controller looks like. And right here you can see there's a little button that is connected to the left trigger. So as you're pressing the left trigger, as you can probably see, it's clicking the button, which is activating the circuit. Same on the other side, this trigger, the right trigger, controls this button. And there's an even smaller button right here, where the sync button, or parent button, is clicking on that, as you can tell. And then, if we explore motor controller. So I looked it up. This D-pad I did put in correctly from the last time I tore it apart. This, if you're not careful, these pieces can fall off. So here, I'm just gonna try and take this off. If I can do this without damaging it any more than I already have. So you take it off like so, and be aware of where it plays. So you might want to pull it up as you take it off, and make sure none of these are bent. And then remember the orientation. So this is how the orientation works. You want kind of like the blades pointing to the left and the flyer sides pointing to the left. And now when you take it off, that's what it's inside of a D-pad. So if you can see, there's this little pole here, and there's other little poles here that clicks on the circuits or on the buttons, and there's this one that just wobbles on where the D-pad is, and if you can hear that clicking, what is probably happening there is that there's buttons inside the board, and the D-pad just presses on them. Pretty cool, eh? So, you can lift this bottom board up by carefully removing the electric tape. Take the motors out, and this one right here, and then this is kind of tricky. Oh yeah, there's screws right here. So I remove those screws as well. And for this, I'm going to use a even smaller flat screwdriver. And you really don't want to lose these screws. And now the board should lift up. Let's not. Unscrew it all the way. Careful not to lose the screws. Still not loose. I'm gonna keep track of the screws. What I'm doing is I'm using the sides of the controllers as screw holders. Now I just wanna gently lift it up, and you want to be careful when you're lifting this up, because there's a wire And you also don't want to damage the battery contacts as well. And also you want to be careful with the headphone jack, because that will also fall out pretty easily. So now try and gently pull this up somehow. I just have, oh, that's probably why. You want to remove the joysticks themselves. Now the board should lift. Yep. And this is what is inside the board. Nothing really worth accessing unless you want to fix, like, you know, this part. And the way you want to have the headphone jack. Also, this is the headphone jack. This is how small it is. Like, kind of like half my fingertip. You want to make sure these contacts are pointing up. As you can see, these are the contact points. And you just want to make sure that is touching. So we're going to screw back the motherboard carefully. But we're going to put it back first, then screw it back in. And then we'll just do that first. Alright, so we have screwed in the motherboard, or half of the motherboard, or whatever this piece is called. So we're gonna put back the motors in, because we don't need those out. Trying to make sure that this is correctly in place here. I don't think it really matters for these wires to be whatever. So now we get to the root of the problem with this. So we're going to place back the D-pad, because that is not my concern of this fix. So that's how you place the D-pad. You want to make sure the little contact points slot in between this cutout here, and just slide that in. And then for the circle piece, that make sure the D-pad stays in place, and you know, makes the D-pad the D-pad. Give me a sec here. Why is that not done back in place? Oh yeah, that's a to note on. So there's also a contact point on 3 of the 4 sides. So this bottom one, that's a way of remembering how the D-pad goes. You want to make sure that this fin goes toward the bottom, and these 3 contact points goes within these 3 slots. And for the circle piece, you want the long way towards the bottom, and then the short way on attached to the top. So we're just gonna attach it, and attaching it is sometimes simpler than detaching it. And I'll make sure I firmly attach it. Hopefully that's in there good. So now we're going to touch on why I took apart this controller. And it's because this joystick was not working. It was inputting movements, and as you can tell by how it sticks, it'll go left fine. It'll go up. Okay, that's pretty bad. It won't go up correctly, down. Pretty much everything but the left is broken. Whereas this side, it does similar but opposite ways, but this I never had a problem with. There's like a, you can press in, you can see the little white thing, white input. Some tricks I learned is I can blow into these little holes right here, but that hasn't worked for me. You can also kind of take them apart, but they're fragile, and I don't know if you can tell, but you see how straight this stick is? Now you can see, like, look how bent this stick is. Not sure if that is the root of the problem, but certainly seems to be that way. And to get access to these, it's really simple. The joysticks themselves has little holes on the bottom that just sticks on like that. And that's, you just take them off. You can replace them if you want. Although there's not really much need to replacing these because they're aesthetic. The actual mechanism you want to worry about is these pentrometers. I can't say that word. But this is what makes the joysticks. Say that they go left, right, up, down. Yeah. So there really isn't much to do with this controller other than kind of just like maybe pressing it towards the other way and hopefully then a little bit straighter. Although you might risk breaking the mechanism, and I'm not even sure if that'll work. But yeah, that's what's inside the controller. Alright, now we're going to put back the controller, or put back together the controller. So, first you want to put back the joysticks. This one's not being cooperative. There we go. Yeah, now I can tell, like, this is a lot more looser. Probably from aggressive gameplay. This is my older brother's controller, so hardcore dimming. Yeah. I have to replace the entire mechanism for this controller to work. Alright, now we turn this around. Actually, we'll take the bottom base plate. We'll slot this in. Make sure that it's slotted correctly. Like there. And now you want to turn it around, holding these two pieces together. And now for well, first we'll put the front plate on. Click in. Now you want to hold all these pieces together and then screw in. You want to screw in these screws. We are right here and here. So we're going to do that. Alright, all the screws are back in place, as you can tell. Now the last thing to do is put on the side plates and just make sure they're in the correct orientation and click them in place. Take the other one and do the same. They should go in easier. Come on. With a little force, they should snap in easier than they snap out. Although this side still needs some trouble. Come on. Well, okay, well, anyways, so you want to put the battery cover back on, and now you have fully disassembled and reassembled, though not very good apparently, a Xbox One controller. And that's how you do it. Now, let's see what the buttons look like. There is something to note. If you do end up taking this apart, you'll find that the buttons are going to be a lot more looser, and the quality of the controller will be somewhat degraded by you taking it apart and putting them back together, unless you are just natural at disassembling and rebuilding things. Me personally, I don't disassemble that mean stuff unless it's absolutely broken. So I would not advise taking apart this controller unless it's just unusable, which in this case it kind of was. And though it could turn on and still act like a controller, it's just some of the buttons didn't really work. And turning in games was just difficult. So yeah, all the buttons seem to work. Triggers, bumpers, the headphone jack and micro USB port is intact. And other than this little crack here, and then in the crack here, it's put together somewhat solidly. Time to hop on the Xbox and see if it still works. Okay, so I try turning on the controller, and every time I turn it on, it'll blink for a second, and then usually it'll turn off or rumble. But from what it seems, it's letting me update it. So if I can, it's not letting me update. Give me a, yep. See, it just died on me again. And I have it plugged in. I have it plugged into the Xbox, and it just died. So, moral of the story is, careful when you are taking apart things, especially complex tech products, because stuff like this can happen. Now it's not even turning on, so it's dead. It's a dead controller. But this is mostly a look on how to take it apart and reassemble. So, hope you guys find this somewhat educational.